The Premier League festive period has not disappointed so far, and we're thick and fast into another set of games. Now, before we get into the housekeeping of this episode, please do hit this video with a like and make sure you're subscribed to the channel, because this year we're trying to go for 1,000 subscribers. Now, due to the fixtures coming thick and fast in Premier League Predictor at the moment, we're not going to be looking at our results from the last game week. For reference, I'm recording this on Saturday morning, so Man United's game hasn't even happened in game week 18 yet, let alone any of the other fixtures. So I don't know anything that's happened this weekend, but because the fixtures are literally happening a day after the previous ones finish, I need to get this video out to give you guys a chance to get your comments in. So we won't be going through any points, but remember, next game week we should have a table which is going to be for the full festive period. So make sure you're still getting your predictions in, and hopefully you'll be up there on that table. Any questions, let me know in the comments. So without further ado, let's get into game week 19, the Matt Ez predictions. There's a couple of decent fixtures in here. I think the keyest two for me are going to be Arsenal-Newcastle, can't wait to watch that one, and Chelsea-Man City I think will be a very interesting fixture as well. Brentford and Liverpool are two teams that I actually have seen play their game week 18 fixtures. Darwin Nunez is creating chances for fun but can't finish them, hoping for Liverpool fans' sake that he starts to come good soon. As for Brentford, they got a 2-0 win. It was up against West Ham and they look good. The only thing that might have come from it is Ivan Toney might now be injured, which will obviously put Brentford at a bit of a detriment. But I saw some players playing in that Brentford side. I only watched the highlights, admittedly, but I saw some players playing in there that could easily take over from Toney if something happened to him. So they're going to be on cloud 9 right now. They're just performing really well, Brentford, as a unit currently, up against Liverpool side that got the win, however, didn't look great. And I think every Liverpool fan and player will agree that they did not perform well there. But you've got to remember that the best teams in the world win games when they're performing badly. So it might be one of those that Liverpool look back on at the end of the season and go, we had to win that game. We had to get the 3 points there to ensure top 4 finish, Champions League qualification, for example. So I think that fixture's now out the way, back of their mind done. They didn't even score a goal and still managed to win 2-1, so it is what it is. Where do I think this fixture's going? I've gone for a 2-2 draw. I think that this is going to be a pretty tight fixture. I think if Brentford have Toney back playing, then they'll obviously be firing on all cylinders. And even if they don't, I think they've got the players to compete with Liverpool. This is kind of an upset result, really, for this week, but I think Liverpool fans will admit they're not on the top of their game at the moment. Even though Leicester did lose to Liverpool 2-1 in game week 18, I do think that they performed okay. Dewsbury Hall in particular had a really good game. Jamie Vardy, when he came on, looked dangerous as well. Liverpool defended well, they just didn't attack particularly brilliantly. And I think that Leicester, so long as they remember which way they're shooting, should get a result against Fulham. I've gone for a 1-0 win to Leicester. I don't think Fulham have got enough to see off Leicester at the moment. Leicester are, slowly climbing back up the league. And I think that, yes, a bad result against Liverpool, but they need to focus on the fact that they didn't actually concede a goal that wasn't by their own defender. Now, assuming that Newcastle and Arsenal win their games against Leeds and Brighton respectively, this is going to be a very interesting fixture. Newcastle and Arsenal has now become a top of the table clash, which you wouldn't have expected us to say 3 years ago, let's face it. These two teams are performing exceptionally so far this year. I think they're probably going to cancel each other out. Obviously, I can't talk about their recent form because, frankly, I haven't seen them play their game in game week 18 yet. But speaking on game week 17, they both performed very well over the Christmas games. And yeah, I just think that they're two sides that are performing at such a high level, they won't want to give anything away. So I think they will be quite sheepish. I think they will stand off. They will sit back a little bit, invite a bit of pressure on, not push forward too much and leave too many gaps at the back. And that'll be both teams doing that. So I've gone for 1-1. I think that it's going to be an even game, and I think if the points were shared, that would be a fair result. As of recording this, Brighton is still 7th in the Premier League. Now, you would have thought that when Graham Potter left, they might start to fall down the league, and they did a little bit, but they're still very much performing week in, week out. They're doing brilliantly well. I've really enjoyed watching Brighton. I think the manager's come out today, as of recording this, on the Saturday, and he said that he wants to keep his stars at the club. Caicedo, McAllister, he doesn't want them to go in January. So I don't think we'll see either of those players transferring out of Brighton until the end of the season at least. But you could argue, if they stay in 7th, if not improve on that position by the end of the season, McAllister and Caicedo should want to stay at Brighton. Yes, Brighton can't provide them with the massive fees that maybe Arsenal, United, Chelsea, City, Liverpool can give them, but they're a team that are competing at the highest level, and surely if they get a European spot, for example, they'll want to stay at Brighton and compete with the team that they've had so much success with already. So we'll have to see. If they keep a hold of them in January, by the end of the season, Brighton might be a club that people want to move to, not move away from. They're coming up against an Everton side that are still slightly struggling in the Premier League, quite low down, could find themselves in a bit of relegation battle. Ben, who does play in this series, is very excited to see potentially Everton get relegated. It's an unhealthy obsession he has with Everton potentially getting relegated. He was very disappointed last season, but he's very much hoping that come what may, June, as it'll be this year, that Everton will be in a bit of a relegation battle. I've put for Brighton to win this game. I've gone for 2-1. I think that, they're just the better side, and they are rightfully in the top parts of the Premier League. Now, as of recording this, in 1 hour and 15 minutes, Man United kick off against Wolves. I am hoping for a win. I'm hoping that it's going to be a convincing performance. Wolves are bottom of the league, blah, blah, blah. They're up against Bournemouth in the next fixture after that, and the fixtures are coming thick and fast. United have still got a lot of controversy around the club. Cristiano Ronaldo retiring off in Saudi Arabia or wherever he's gone to is now gone. We can forget about that. His son's gone with him, so be it. Something that is still kind of in the background is Mason Greenwood. Don't have a clue what's happening with that at the moment. People are potentially leaking photos of him with his girlfriend at Christmas, which I'm assuming are old photos, if I'm honest with you, but that would be ridiculous if that comes to be. So we might see him in a United shirt potentially. Garnacho's been linked with Chelsea, which I really hope doesn't happen because he's a good young talent. And there's just so much like sort of controversial things still happening behind the scenes with the takeover as well. But on the pitch, Erik ten Hag has managed to make this United side play the way it should be. Jadon Sancho has returned to Manchester after some mental health issues. He's been out in the Netherlands with some specialists over there working on his mental health. It's good to hear that he's back home in Manchester and can hopefully start training with the first team soon. Him coming back will be like a new signing. If he comes back as good as he was at Dortmund, as good as he has been at United in the past, then it will be like a new signing. So that is very much welcomed in my book. Where do I see them going against Bournemouth? I think it'll be a 3-0 win. I think it'll be pretty straightforward. That's the scoreline I've gone for. And I just think this Erik ten Hag train is chewing all the way to the top 4 finish. Southampton versus Nottingham Forest then. This is the bottom of the table clash. Essentially, whoever wins this is a 6-pointer because they're winning against someone who will be in the relegation battle with them at the end of the season. There's not much to say on this fixture right now. Nottingham Forest, the only time I've seen them recently is against United, and they were really poor. Southampton, the only time I've seen them was against Brighton recently, and Brighton are Brighton. They just went through them like no tomorrow. So I think both these teams won't want to lose this game. It's such an important fixture at the bottom of the Premier League, and getting relegated from the Premier League is probably the worst thing that can happen to a club in the English footballing pyramid. Getting promoted to Premier League is the biggest prize in football financially. Getting relegated can have such a negative impact on your club, with players wanting to leave to be in Premier League teams, and just overall the interest in football at your club dropping in the fans' perspective as well because you've gone down the leagues. I think it's going to be a 0-0. This is my board draw of the week. I think that they're going to be so tight that they won't want to give away a goal. And that's going to result in a goalless draw. I'm going to assume that both Leeds and West Ham are going into this fixture on a defeat. I assume Leeds will lose against Newcastle. West Ham have already lost up against Brentford. And West Ham are crashing and burning tragically at the moment. Such a big London club are performing so woefully in the Premier League this season. And I think they're in danger. I think they could find themselves getting drawn into some battles that they're not going to want to be in come what the end of the season. So I'm really worried for them. I mean, if they do get relegated, Declan Rice is moving, and that's a positive for another Premier League club, because he is still the player that every time I watch West Ham, and I watched the Brentford highlights as I mentioned, and he still had the best chance of the game. He had a shot that was absolutely flying and it came off the post. And he just seems to be the only one in that squad at the moment. Fabianski as well, by the way, played very well. But he's the only one at the moment who seems to be trying. Actually seems to care that they're losing, that they're getting shown up by teams like Brentford. So, honestly, I don't see West Ham doing particularly well for the rest of this season. I thought they were going to push Europe this season. I was so wrong. So wrong. I've gone for 2-1 to Leeds. I think that despite Leeds possibly being defeated by Newcastle this week, in this game week, I think when they do come up against West Ham, they've got the better team at the moment to see off that fixture. So, yeah, 2-1 to Leeds, and I think that West Ham are in big trouble. Aston Villa and Wolves is a fixture that could go either way. I've not got a massive amount to say about it, having not watched them play in Game Week 18 yet. Wolves obviously currently sat in, 18th in the Premier League. Aston Villa a little bit further up, around 12th position as I speak. I don't really know what's going to happen in this fixture. I'm not going to say that it's an easy one to predict, because it's not, but I have gone the way of Aston Villa. I just think with Emery now being in the club and having been there for a little while, and potential transfer targets coming in January, there's going to be a bit of a lift around the club, and they're going to start to perform a little bit better. So I've gone for a 1-0 win to Aston Villa. And Wolves, even though they have had a result, I believe it was on Boxing Day or the day after Boxing Day, even though they have had a result recently, I think they're probably going to struggle a little bit going forward for the rest of the season, and probably will find themselves in a relegation battle. Spurs Crystal Palace then. As a United fan, I really want Spurs to continue dropping points every now and then, but I feel like eventually Spurs are going to come back to winning ways. They drew the last game, obviously, that I watched. I don't know what they've done in Game Week 18 yet, but they're a team that you don't really know what's going to turn up at the moment. They just seem to be in a bit of a bad shape of form. Coming up against the Crystal Palace side, who have had 2 red cards the last time I watched them. Haven't seen them in Game Week 18 yet. I've gone for 2-1 Spurs. I think the Spurs win this game, but it's going to be a hard fixture. A battle of the London clubs here, and I think that, as I said, Spurs are eventually going to come back into form. They're not going to make it that easy for Man United to get a top 4 finish. Final game of the weekend then, and we're looking at Chelsea against Man City. Now, this is really one of those games that you look at as a Arsenal fan and you go, City could drop points here. So it's one of those fixtures going to be very important for the title race indeed. Chelsea are one of the only teams really in the Premier League that could give City a bit of trouble. I would argue the other ones are Liverpool, Newcastle, Arsenal of course, Manchester United, and that's probably it. Maybe Spurs on a good day. So this is a game where Newcastle fans and Arsenal fans will be hoping that City drop points. Do I think that's going to happen? I don't. Unfortunately, I've seen Chelsea are in the market for a lot of players coming into January, so by the time this game kicks off, you guys might know about a few signings for Chelsea, which will give them a lift. But I still think Man City are the better squad. They've got the better depth. Overall, better starting 11. They're probably going to win this game. I've gone for 3-1 to Manchester City, and I think that they're just a team that's really hard to stop at the moment. If Arsenal are going to win this league, they need to not drop points, which goes against my prediction for the Newcastle game. So here's a rundown of my Matt Ayres predictions for Game Week 19 in the Premier League. We've got Brentford and Liverpool to draw 2-2. Leicester to win 1-0 against Fulham. Arsenal and Newcastle to draw 1-1. Everton to lose 2-1 at home to Brighton. Manchester United to win 3-0 against Bournemouth. Southampton and Nottingham Forest to do a bore draw 0-0. Leeds United to win 2-1 against West Ham. Aston Villa to win 1-0 against Wolves. Crystal Palace to lose 2-1 to Tottenham. And then you've got Chelsea to lose 3-1 at home to Manchester City. Remember, guys, to be in with a chance of being on that leaderboard at the end of the festive period, make sure you get your comments down below, all your predictions in for these games. Please do them in the same order that I've done them. It makes it easier for me when I'm counting up lots and lots of scores. Subscribe to the channel as well, and make sure you like this video to help this series go further. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. The Premier... oh, Jesus Christ.